So Sonia, it's 4:45, so
No other introductions, right? I can just start?
you can, yep, just start with introducing yourself, and you probably want to share your share the presentation.
Yes,
and
I
then
will.
we're
Hi, everyone.
good to
I'm
go.
Sonia. I manage curation for Harvard's Dataverse, and I manage the Murray Research Archive. Welcome to our evening session and late evening for some places. So we can get started right away. Danny will join us in doing a second half, join me in doing a second half of the presentation. I'm going to present half of the releases and Danny will do the other half. So. Okay, so this is the new feature demo. And I'm going to present on releases 4.15 through 4.18, and Danny will do the releases after 4.18 to the present. So some improvements to the UI for Dataverse include filtering and sorting of files in datasets and, better recognition and categorization of file types. So now you can sort through all of the different file types within a data set. You can look at the access, whether it's restricted or public for access for files. And if there are file tags, you can also filter by file tags, and there is a sort that allows you to sort by the most recent, the oldest, or alphabetically. And we also have better recognition and categorization of file types. So there's always this unknown file category. If you are one of the Dataverse installations that supports more than one discipline or disciplines that you might not have planned to support, like Harvard Dataverse, you know, when we started, it was all social science data, but we were open to the worldwide community, research community. So we had all kinds of file types coming in. So they are working on improving the categorization of file types. Dataverse Size API was also released in 4.15. Now you can report the data and file size of an entire Dataverse. It shows the combined size in bytes of all the files uploaded into a Dataverse. So this API is available in our user guide for your use. You can have the size of published and unpublished files that will be summed in both the Dataverse specified and beneath all of its sub-Dataverses. And only the archival files are counted by default. We also included variable metadata export. So the data curation tool is going to allow users to now edit variable level metadata and create new versions of data sets. So if you are integrating this external tool, this is what it is for. It's going to export the DDI XML in Dataverse. And it has to take under consideration the versions that users want to export. So this is what this feature is going to be allowing. And we also have the variable metadata edit API in 4.15. So you have a new API endpoint for updating variable level metadata. It is also used in the data curation tool and can be called using curl commands with the corresponding files. So this again will be in the guide section of the Dataverse.org page. In 4.16, there were a number of releases, and we have some use cases that are helpful for those of us who use mostly the user interface, as well as those who are installing and the developers and the coders to understand. So as a user, this means you can view works that have cited a data set. You can view the downloads and views for a data set based on the Make Data Count standard. You could export HTML codebooks for a data set, and you can expect harvested data sets to be made available more regularly with this, with the updates in 4.16. And you'll also encounter fewer locks as you go through the publishing process. For installation administrators, you no longer need to destroy a PID in another system after destroying a data set in Dataverse. So let's look at the 4.16 features. We have metrics redesign and HTML codebook export. So for the metrics redesign, the metrics view at both the data set and file level have been redesigned. So the main driver of this redesign has been the expanded metrics, citations, and the views that will be provided through the integration with Make Data Count. But installations that don't adopt Make Data Count will also be able to take advantage of the new metrics panel. For the CodeBook export, the HTML CodeBook export, users are able now to download the HTML CodeBook as an additional dataset export type. So this CodeBook is supposed to be more human-readable version of the DDI CodeBook 2.5 metadata export and provide more valuable information about the contents and structure of a data set. So hopefully this will be one of the things that will increase the reusability of data sets in Dataverse. Okay. So 1417 major use cases, we have newly supported features that for users, mostly going through the user interface or APIs, you can launch and utilize external tools that allow you to work across the code, data, and other files in a data set. You can add a footer to your Dataverse to show the logo for a funder or other entity. You can build external tools that will verify reproducibility or allow computations. And you can check to see the impact of your proposed changes on memory utilization. As an installation administrator, you can make quick configuration changes to provide a better experience for your installation's users. So those were the goals of the use cases for 4.17. And here is what we have. We have the Data Explorer and Performer Enhancement features. So for the Data Explorer, we have tools that integrate with Dataverse that can be launched from the dataset page. This makes it possible to develop and add tools that work across the entire dataset instead of a single file. And you also have these tools to verify reproducibility and allow researchers to compute on an entire dataset that will take advantage of the new infrastructure. In terms of performance enhancement features, Dataverse now allows installation administrators to configure the session timeout for logged in users. Setting this lower will release system resources as configured and will result in better performance of your installation. Dataverse and dataset pages have also been optimized to discard more of the objects that they allocate immediately after the page load. It keeps the memory less permanently tied up for the duration of the user's login session. And they're significant in the Dataverse page. So for 4.18, the features major use cases for users will be that you can view previews of several common file types. So you don't need to download a file just to take a quick look at it. Most people want to see what's available in a data file, what's available in a codebook to see if it's useful before they download it. You can log in using self-provisioned Microsoft accounts, and you can log in using Microsoft accounts managed by an organization. You can also revoke and regenerate API tokens with an API call. You will receive notifications with all ingest activity, and you'll be informed if the ingest was successful or if it was a failure. For Dataverse developers, you will be able to receive feedback about the health of the develop branch after the pull request was merged. You will also be able to collect make data count metrics without turning on the display for users. For Dataverse tool developers, you'll be able to query the Dataverse API for unpublished data set as well as published data. And users with a DAI, Researcher ID, or Scopus ID can now use these author identifiers in their data sets. So let's take a look at 4.18. We have the file preview, file page previews, and Microsoft login. So for the file page previews, I'm just showing you a couple of previews from files in the Harvard Dataverse. These are not restricted files. They are open anyhow. And so we have the file preview of a data set, and we have a text preview. So file level external tools can now be configured to display this preview model. It's designed for embedding within the file landing page.
This is a 5-minute warning, Sonia.
Oh, goodness. I should be done in a second. Microsoft login. So users can now create Dataverse accounts and log in using the self-provisioned Microsoft accounts such as Live.com and Outlook. You can also use Microsoft accounts managed by your institutions. It not only makes it easier to log in a Dataverse, but it'll also streamline the interaction between any external tools that utilize Azure services that require login. And I can take some questions now before we move on to Danny's presentation, but Danny will likely answer the questions because these are all technical things that are developed on the back end. So do we have any questions?
So there is one question about authentication with only an external LDAP. So I'm going to talk about something that was released in 4.19 called OpenID Connect, and so we'll see if that answers the question or changes the question.
All right, Danny, do you want me to leave my screen open, or do you want to share yours? I'm okay driving.
Okay, that's fine. Are there other questions? Other questions out there? So we do have about 30 minutes total of presentation. So it would be great if there were questions about features released in the last year, if folks have them. Okie dokie. So just keep the questions coming in the chat, and then we'll stop periodically to ask if folks have questions about anything being presented. So just really quickly, 4.19, we introduced an experimental Python installer. Our Perl installer has served us well, continues to serve us well. If y'all were in the discussion about installation, deployments, automated testing, DevOps earlier, we can just jump back to that previous slide.
I know, sorry.
Yeah, no worries, no worries. If y'all were in the session earlier, there was a comment that's very true, which is, you know, at Harvard we don't run the infrastructure. We have a group that does it for us, and the team also doesn't have much of a skill set in system administration, and so this is something where we really turn it over to other folks. But we do have the experimental Python installer, and the goal is to move to that long term. That's for better maintainability, and also as we interact with other deployment technologies, Python is better at that. And we intend to eventually move to Python installer, but we're still using Perl locally. But we encourage other folks, as Dataverse Ansible has done, to take it on. Next slide. Cool. So just kind of talking about the use cases driving OpenID Connect. So before 4.19, it used to be that if somebody wanted to add a new login method to Dataverse, they would need to fork the code. So we supported OAuth, we supported Shibboleth, and we supported the local login that you see there. But now, if your institution's running a OpenID Connect compliant login provider, then you're able to basically configure that provider to work with Dataverse with a configuration option instead of forking the code. So when we're thinking about things like adoption for Dataverse, it's really powerful to be able to enable those additional login options without the need to fork the code and to make it an easily configurable thing. And this contribution was by Oliver, who talked earlier in the DevOps session. Cool. On to the next slide. And so. So I talked about this a bit yesterday in the beginning session, the plenary session. But as we move towards larger files, support for direct upload to the storage or direct transfer to the storage is more and more important. So when we first approached large data support, we approached it through support with the Helmsley Foundation about structural biology, and so that uses rsync over SSH to transfer, but that laid the groundwork for large data being able to be put directly on the file system, and then basically have the existence of that data be communicated back to Dataverse. And so what happened with Direct S3 support that was released in 420, and this work was supported by Texas Digital Library, what happens basically is that the user gets the same experience as they would get if they were uploading directly to Dataverse through the application server. So this all kind of happens in the background. So it's the user gets the same experience for uploading, and larger files can be more easily uploaded. So this is something that's really exciting because, again, that rsync over SSH did support large data transfers. So we've had large data support in Dataverse for a little while now, but this actually provides a much better experience for that transfer for those installations that are running S3. On to the next one. Thank you. Another Texas Digital Library supported project, and another thing that I talked about yesterday during the session, but multiple stores. The use cases around this are focused on sustainability for Dataverse installations. The first case being able to handle things like chargebacks. If you're an installation that's supporting multiple institutions and you want to be able to charge back to those institutions for the storage costs, this enables you to do that. And then also a use case is around configuration, and so you can set up a specific store for each Dataverse, and you can set different options for maximum upload size, for example. So that allows you to provide a multi-tiered experience. And so for like Harvard Dataverse, for example, we do want to remain open to the world, but there's a point where we can't take on the storage costs for multi-terabyte storage for users around the world, but we do want to provide that to Harvard researchers. So this allows that configuration, again, on a Dataverse by Dataverse level. So it's a really powerful feature. And again, this work was added by the Texas Digital Library, and we're really excited to get it into the core of Dataverse in 420. Cool. So role management APIs. So there were kind of two reasons why we took this on. So we want to allow everything that can be done through the UI to be available through the API. And so there's a list of APIs that are not, or that were not, where we didn't have parity with the UI. And so we're just kind of going through and picking those off one by one because we want to be as interoperable as possible. And then, and speaking of interoperability, we want to get to a place where, like, for example, if roles need to be removed when a user leaves Harvard or leaves another institution, we want that to be able to be called through the APIs. So you can only do that if you have an API. So we were happy to get these added in 420. So on to the next slide. So Sonia talked briefly about the Dataverse Size API that was added a couple of releases back. So we added a Dataset Size API as well, and the use cases are on the screen, but they're really focused on, one use case is focused on the administrative side. If there's some action that needs to be taken because a data set is too big, or if I want to monitor that so I can follow up with researchers. Another use case is focused around the user experience. If you're thinking about a user that's looking at a data set with all these files, we want to empower that user to make wise decisions about how much data is going to be transferred instead of just picking everything. And then also, when we think about being able to launch tools, if we know easily how big a data set is, then that can be provided to those tools, and those tools can then provide a better experience for really large data sets versus small data sets. And so that's something that we can't control the experience in the other in tools once people leave the Dataverse ecosystem, but we are able to at least empower those tools to be able to make those or to be able to provide those workflows. Cool. On to the next one. Thank you. And thank you to, I assume it was Sebastian from Qualitative Data Repository that showed the beautiful picture of the Payara fish. I didn't realize how accurate the logo was, but now I know. Those who don't follow the application stack of Dataverse closely, I certainly don't. But we have a very old application server called Glassfish that has served us well, but it was time to move off of it. And one big part of that is that as software gets older, there are security issues, and so we were interested in moving to something more modern to resolve those security issues and to minimize risks there, or to mitigate risks. But also, as we look at new deployment technologies, and we look at interoperability, and we wanted to move to Java EE8, and there's things like micro profiles that are more easily used with containers. There's a lot of stuff that moving to Payara opens up, and so this is a big deal for continued Dataverse development. Even though a lot of stuff for the user experience isn't going to change. So we're really excited to get this upgraded in Dataverse 5. And as I mentioned yesterday, Dataverse 5 is very close to being released. We're just working on a few last things, but this will be coming out very soon. Next slide. So for those who are not, who haven't been watching closely, we've been kind of rolling out pieces of our data set and file redesign incrementally. Part of that was that file sorting, the file sorting and filtering that Sonia talked about. Part of that was getting the previews on the page, and the next part of that are the buttons. And I should have actually went on the branch and grabbed images of these buttons, but what we were seeing is that as we wanted to add more ways to access data aside from download, we were finding that our old button patterns fell short. And so we had to build something that was a bit more scalable. And also we took the opportunity to provide a more responsive layout. So this is something that you will notice in the UI Dataverse 5. But again, the goal is not only to provide a good experience with these workflows for accessing data, but also to be able to more easily provide that into the future. Next slide. Oh yeah, this is the button level. So there's some stuff on here regarding sensitive data. You can see data tags, but again, this just focuses on the expanded options. If you think about the old download button, that we had there, if we want to provide different access options, this will provide us more ability to do that in the future and is more scalable. All right, next. Yes, so I talked about it a little bit yesterday, but those of y'all who download zip files from Dataverse, you know that Dataverse allows you to select as many files as you want for zipping, and then to download that zip. And then when you look at the zip after you download it, you'll say that oh dang, I only got half my files. It skipped these files. So the reason this is in place is because there's a potential for system instability. So for each Dataverse installation, you can set a level of you can set a byte level that is the limit for zipping. And so at Harvard we have ours set to something I don't remember off the top of my head, but we really wanted to provide a better experience with download and data access, because what is Dataverse without download and data access? So we've optimized the zipping. And so we really want to eliminate the really bad use case of downloading that zip file and seeing in the manifest messages like you see on the screen here where files are skipped. So it'll be really great to get this implemented. All right, next slide. In order to support support computational reproducibility and also some other use cases, we've had to change how we handle files in Dataverse. And so, so it used to be that if files had the same MD5s, they wouldn't be allowed within a data set, but now we're going to allow that. Also, since we've introduced file hierarchy, we can actually get more flexible with files that have the same name, especially in a lot of, for example, CodeOcean capsules. There are files in different directories that have the same name. So in preparation for handling the integration with CodeOcean, we now allow files with the same name in different directories. And then also with our recent upgrade of prime faces, those files with that extension can now be uploaded through the UI. It used to be that files with that extension could be uploaded through the API, because that that of course didn't touch the UI that was powered by prime faces. But now in the recent release, that the files without extensions can now be uploaded. All right, next slide. Yeah, so there's a bunch of other issues that were closed out. We don't have time to dig into a lot of them, but there was of course a lot of other work done. And apologies if anything that y'all reported didn't get included in the presentation. So I want to give a quick note of thanks to Sherry from UVA, because last year at the community meeting, she brought up the release notes. The information was in there, but it wasn't really in a state where it was super useful to anyone who wanted to know what changed. And so the bullets here highlight the sections of our release notes now, and depending on the audience, you can take a look at it from a few different perspectives. And then of course we do still provide that complete list of changes as well as the upgrade installation. So we try to release between 8-12 times a year. I think we had 8 releases last year maybe. So we were on the lower side, but that is a lot of releases because we want to get the value out as quickly as possible. But it can be hard to keep up. So the best way to do it is the release notes, and there have been some other good suggestions for that as well. But we did really revamp that process to be a bit more helpful for folks from a lot of different audiences. All right, let's jump to the next slide. Is that it? Oh, I thought I had a giant question slide. And Sonia, I think you're muted. Sonia, I think you're still muted. Or is my audio?
Yeah, I can't hear Sonia either, and her microphone icon is red.
Yeah. So
I apologize.
No worries, no worries. So I was not following any questions that came up. If somebody was, I'm happy to try to answer them. And then also, I mean, we have plenty of time for folks who have questions live. So
That was the last slide.
Cool.
Okay. So questions. Because I see Gustavo was answering questions, and
I think an early comment from Jonas, not a question, but something that might have been missed was he was saying that a Dataverse specific guide to set up OAI-DC for LDAP would be super duper great, especially when it comes to user groups and deletion of discontinued accounts.
yeah.
And then Oliver said that that's on his list.
Yes. Slide link.
Love it.
Sounds great.
There you go.
Yeah, thank you, Oliver, for all the contributions over the last year. Cool. Other questions? like I said, we do have a lot of time for any questions of anything about the last year. We have Gustavo here. We have other folks here that can answer questions. Cool. Question from Sherry. Will there be migration information to go from Glassfish to Payara? Yeah, that's actually one of the issues that that we need to get done before we can release is some detailed documentation around what that upgrade looks like. And there is a GitHub issue for that. I'll be happy to find that and put it in the chat. Other questions? And if Gustavo or Oliver or Jim or anyone wants to provide a better explanation of any of the technical aspects that I moved very quickly over, like why we're excited about Payara, please feel free to do so.
Kudos to all the people who've rewrote the docs and changed anything from Glassfish to Payara, and kudos to Leonid who rewrote almost all of the installer, so supporting Payara, etc. That was a lot of work and many things to tackle.
Cool, thanks. And so Oliver, I know you gave a quick explanation in the morning session about why you were excited about Payara. Can you just repeat that briefly here about why we're excited about that?
So from a developer perspective, this was a major boost of things because we could start to get rid of old stuff like an old AWS library and many other things which were bloating, for example, the WAR file. And now we have the possibility to get it smaller and change to modern technology. Like we changed to Jakarta E8 now. We are a modern web application now. And this is offering a very huge opportunity to add new features with modern technology. And from a sysadmin perspective, I'm pretty eager about all the configuration goodies that microprofile config API is offering, because I find it always pretty tedious to configure Dataverse via the JVM options and database options, especially when it comes to containers. This is very frustrating sometimes because there's no easy way to do this. You always have to do some bash gluing, writing scripts to get them inside there properly. It's not idempotent and all the other bad things you don't want to do. And this is getting much easier with that new technology. And for that, we would need to move to a modern platform like Payara. And I also see that a lot of other places might get easier with the installer getting rewritten now, and yeah, so many places. It's really it's amazing how many things now could change for the better.
Cool, thank you. Much better said than I could do. I appreciate it. Thanks, Oliver. Cool.
Yeah, I think you covered anything I was going to add there. So good job.
Cool. So Philip had a question about downloading large data sets. Would they have to contact Dataverse admin to provide download through rsync? So I'll answer that in two ways. The first is to just give a quick plug for the remote storage and large data set discussion tomorrow, happening at 11:30. The other part of that answer is that part of the reason that we revisited those buttons that I talked about a few slides back was so we could provide those options. Like, for example, right now, if something is a package file in Dataverse on an installation that's running that's running on AWS, we provide a workflow that that allows you to get to a pop-up that shows instructions for using wget. And so we wanted to continue to provide options like that, where you can imagine a Globus link or some other way of transferring that large file. And so that's why the buttons, even though it seems like, oh, hey, they're just redoing buttons, it enables us to open up so many new workflows that'll be critical in the future for supporting large and sensitive data. Cool. Other questions? All right, we are so rarely together as a community, so I do want to give the opportunity to people to ask questions if they have them. But also, I know we've been going for let's see, we started at 8 a.m. So we've been going for many hours at this point. So if people want a longer break before the before the last session, happy to do that as well. Of course, Janet, it just started in Australia. So Jonas, the question about the Dataverse store. It looks like we don't have Slava on the call, but Slava and others have suggested a Dataverse store that, we have these external tools that are being built for Dataverse, and so there's interest to basically provide, dare I say, an app store of useful tools that could integrate with Dataverse. As far as yep, and Jonas, thank you for linking to the issue. As far as any work by the core team, there hasn't been any work done on that, but this would potentially be something that would be interesting to coordinate on with the Global Dataverse Community Consortium, because we love external tools, and if there's any APIs that we can build to make external tools work better or work in the first place, we're happy to add them. Other questions? All right, folks. So if there are no other questions, I'll go ahead and end the meeting.